everyone, and welcome to another Heart for Peace US interview. I am really excited. I have the honor and privilege of chatting with two phenomenal women today who are changing perceptions and empowering young women to take charge of their health and hearts. Bethany and Hannah were both diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or known as HCM, at a younger age. And although Bethany and Hannah do not have PCOS, their mission and stories can and should resonate and be a beacon for all to learn, to support, and to understand heart health, heart disease, and prevention and CPR education. So welcome, Bethany and Hannah. I am so excited that you're both here today. And I would love each of you to share a little more about your background and what kind of got you into this space. So Hannah, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I'm Hannah. I'm the taller of the two, but I'm younger. I'm 24. I'm a recent film school graduate. So I'm usually like the one filming, if I'm not in front of the camera on our content that we make for Instagram. I was diagnosed first with HCM, and then a week later, Bethany was diagnosed because it is a genetic heart condition. We're sisters. We are just 2 of 9 kids, so we come from a big family. And yeah, and I have an implantable defibrillator that has shocked me 4 times and has saved my life. So I am a sudden cardiac arrest survivor.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And Bethany, what about you? Because you both have kind of the same story, but different stories, right?
Yeah, so at the time that I was diagnosed, I was dancing with Miami City Ballet in a pre-professional program. I was homeschooled. I thought I was going to be a professional ballerina. That's what I wanted to be. I dreamed of doing it. As Hannah said, I got diagnosed a week after she did. And then along this journey, I kind of hid the diagnosis a little bit. I didn't like really want to share it. I was a little scared that one day I would have to give up the dancing. I ended up graduating with a dance degree, but I did end up having to retire the ballet shoes and I no longer dance anymore. But I think as you asked earlier, like how we got into the space, I think it became this point of like seeing ourselves and being so young and dealing with this heart condition is you don't see a lot of young people like with heart conditions or any type of condition or disease out there. And so I think I told Hannah, I was like, we have to do something. We like need to use the power of social media and bring more young people together, especially that are dealing with either a chronic illness, a heart condition, whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how we got into the space is actually after I got my implanted defibrillator, like the idea and the thought just came to me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And this is such an important message for me because I have been saying all along that you have to start educating people when they are younger because health concerns aren't just for old people like me anymore. They're for young people as well. So we need to educate and learn. So can you both tell me what is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?
I'll go. So hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is where your left ventricle wall and your heart is abnormally thick. So what happens is it makes it harder when your heart starts beating really fast for the blood to pump and circulate. So at some point, since basically like this is it, the walls are collapsing on each other and the blood can no longer get in, and then your heart is basically just shaking because there's no blood into it, hence what makes you go into sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow. So have you had to make changes in your lifestyle and has it had a positive impact? Hannah, I'm going to start with you.
With HCM, there is no cure for this condition. It is, in a sense, managed through lifestyle changes. And so as Bethany was a dancer, I danced as well. I played, sports, everything from like t-ball to basketball. We like being active. And when I was diagnosed at the age of 14, I was told I had to stop all of that because my left ventricle was immensely thick. So like a normal left ventricle would be like 11 millimeters. Mine was double that. Mine was 22. And so because it can obstruct the blood flow and then it, causes irregular heartbeats, my cardiologist told me, hey, anything that gets your heart racing, we don't want you to do. And she even was surprised, and she told me that same day that I'm surprised you haven't dropped dead yet of how active you were just months prior to your diagnosis. So, you know, that moment, when I look back on my life, is a moment that completely changed it, you know, right then and there, being told that, you know, everything that I had just been doing, I should be lucky that I was able to have a chance, but that I can't push it anymore. And the diagnosis for me came at a point in my life. I was just entering high school, so I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then that, you know, diagnosis kind of helped me. Obviously, I believe this is where I'm meant to be, and it kind of got me more into, you know, I love performing, so I went more towards acting, and then that's when I fell in love with directing and wanted to, you know, pursue making, you know, films and TV shows, and because that kind of was my therapy, you know, because I couldn't go out and run, so I was like, I'm gonna binge Netflix shows. And then I started getting really into it, and I realized, which is kind of a big thing, that I think the positive impact of having the diagnosis and having to change my life is that watching all these movies and these shows, I realized, okay, I'm escaping my diagnosis, but I'm also not seeing myself represented, and I kind of needed to face that. And so I saw that there was such a huge lack, and so that kind of became a reason why I went to film school, to get better at the craft and to, you know, think of how can I make great, you know, shows or movies that has a character with my condition, especially young, and especially, you know, doesn't die or end up in a coma at the end of the episode, or they just forget about it, you know, when it doesn't serve any more dramatic purposes. So that for me, I think was the biggest positive impact of having this diagnosis, of leading me to what I want to do. And then hopefully, you know, starting in our Instagram little content, and then hopefully growing from there to have better representation in media. Because we all know, especially like not only for young people, but that's like, you remember movies and you remember shows and you remember those moments. And so to be able to help future, you know, young people, especially women, to see themselves on screen and know that like, hey, it's easier for me to talk to my friends about it because this character on this popular, you know, show has the same condition I do. And it kind of, you know, makes it easier for people to not feel alone. Yeah. And that's been a big thing for us, to just see of us just doing our Instagram, of finding that community of people who have been sometimes hiding, you know, like amongst their friends, because it's a little bit scarier in person than on social media.
It is, but it's so important to make those connections when you are dealing with a chronic condition. And that's why it's awesome that the two of you have each other and have built this mission together. So Bethany, how has your journey empowered you and Hannah to do the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I think as Hannah was saying, like our lives having to change and, you know, kind of redream like what we, you know, what can we work towards? And so I think Hannah and I have always done a really good job of being like advocates for our condition, for making sure that, you know, other people's lives are saved through it. But especially Hannah too, like we had such a small voice, right? So we didn't reach as many people as we could. And so when it came to us, as I was talking earlier about the, you know, the power of social media and using the Instagram, we kind of just like used it as a way to like reach more people. And then I think like seeing this advocacy and being a voice for other people, and like showing like, especially me, like, so before I even started the Instagram, I didn't remember doing this, but I made a post and I hashtagged like HCM, and I talked like, you know, I was just saying like happy heart month or something like that. Right. And right before, a month before I was about to launch Instagram, a young girl my age who's got diagnosed with HCM, same condition, reached out to me, and she's like, hey, I saw your Instagram post and I saw how happy and like grateful you are for your defibrillator and how like positive you are. And I was like, wow, like how? Like I couldn't even remember the post. Like I was like, really? And I had told her, I'm like, well, the idea is to start this Instagram page and go. And she's like, oh my gosh, you have to do it. And so I think that really helped to see that, not to be afraid, and like how you share your story and you help so many people. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And now kind of like full circle moment is like, I like lobbied for like a legislation in Florida for, you know, 9th and 11th graders to learn CPR and AED training. And now I work for an elected official and I get to go up there and help other people who want to help like pass legislation and make changes. Now I get to do that as like a job, you know? And so I think it's really cool to see like how full circle that moment came and being a part of the process. I mean, I hope that answered your question.
It definitely did. And I love that it's your advocacy has led you into working with legislators. That's kind of like my wheelhouse as well, with like PCOS Advocacy Day that we have in March. And
oh my gosh,
it's such an empowering and important experience to get out there and to, you know, share your experiences and share your stories. So I love hearing about that. So tell me more about your mission and your organization, guys. I would love everybody to learn a little bit more about what you're doing.
Bethany launched it because I was actually like serving a church mission when she first launched it. And then it kind of grew because we had goals of like, this is what we want people to know that they're not alone, to show people that you can, you know, live a good life even if you have to change it, that your life doesn't end with a diagnosis, and to show that young representation in it. And then it kind of grew into this community, and we realized, like, you know, we're not experts at everything, but we're experts at being patients, and you'll probably agree with this. And so we realized that it kind of grew into a patient-to-patient community. And, you know, we've had to go through surgeries to get our implanted defibrillators. And one of the goals for us was always to, you know, be in, like, go and show up at the PICU and be like, hey, like, we're young people, you're going through this, and welcome them into the community and stuff. And so to do that as like two random girls is kind of hard. And so people kept telling us, hey, like, you should become a nonprofit. And so we became a nonprofit, you know, all amongst COVID and everything. And we became it, and it kind of like solidified us, you know, we're like an official 501c3, and that kind of opened a lot of doors. And just as you've probably heard with our stories of, like, you know, we push because our life was saved by a heart screening. If we never got our heart screens, I would have died in my sleep when I was 17. When I got diagnosed, all the stories that we were finding were young people dropping dead playing the sports like basketball or things. And so we realized what's, you know, more sad than someone dying is someone dying from a preventable cause. And so heart screenings for us, it all goes back to that it was easy, it could have been detected. And so you can tell, like, it's Bethany doing the legislative part, is that's part of our mission, is, you know, sometimes you got to make it a law so people do it instead of just sharing it. But then we also realize that not only through legislation, you know, we're very proud we have a pilot program going on in our school county to have kids from elementary to high school being screened. But then also you can see from our media perspective is you have to change the culture for people. We have to educate people, and especially like young people, like watching videos, watching the internet, that's how they consume knowledge. But like, hey, this law could be passed, but are people like, why should they care? Like, and we've been able to share a story when people hear, oh my gosh, your life was saved by a heart screening. It makes kids want to get their heart screened. And so we also kind of push of showing, like, hey, body positivity with having defibrillators and scars, and hey, we should have relatable characters, and being able to take hold of our stories to be able to share it. And so it's kind of a mix of like, hey, changing it not only in the media and that, but then pushing it for legislation and kind of joining both of those forces. But ultimately, HEARTCHARGED is, you know, a community of people, and everyone is welcome, no matter you have a heart condition or not, because we need everyone's help to get this, you know, people to care about it, and to get more people to know what to do if someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest and such forth.
Yeah, no, it is wonderful that you have this community. And another reason why I wanted to connect with you is a lot of patients with PCOS, they don't start recognizing it until women are like in their 20s and 30s, and that's when they start getting diagnosed. However, girls as young as 8 years old can have PCOS, and because PCOS deals with hormone imbalances and insulin levels being high and inflammation being high, it presents a risk for cardiovascular disease. And that can start in girls as young as in their teens with plaque deposit buildup and them having atherosclerosis. So it's something that I think we have to recognize across the board with different conditions, and bring this education back to younger age groups. So Bethany, why is it important to recognize heart disease and heart health risks can happen to anyone, even in young women like yourselves?
I think it's so important, especially, and as we've touched on, is that how many times we see how many lives are lost. And when we think that it's a preventable, most of the time it's a preventable condition. And I think about like this little young girl who it happened in our community, and she was a dancer and she was at dance class and she died, and her condition was fixed with one surgery. And I think, oh my gosh, a heart screening would have saved her life. And so, especially going forward, I think it's so important that whatever our awareness is, or whatever our approach is, or whatever we're doing to help save lives, that we make sure that we're including everybody, that everybody gets the chance to know, or everybody gets the chance to be diagnosed. And especially we come across a lot of people that are on a mission to do similar things to us, and they narrow it down to just like one group. And as you were talking about, is like, we definitely have to talk about young girls because it could be happening in their teens. And I don't have PCOS, but I actually have an experience is when I was dancing, I got really thin and I actually lost my period, and I formed cysts on my ovaries, and they ended up rupturing twice, putting me in the hospital both times because they were bad. And so I think like, wow, if I knew about like your condition, right? If I knew about PCOS, and if I knew about HCM before I got diagnosed, we all maybe would have been on different paths or watched out for certain things. So again, I'm a huge advocate that everybody gets the chance to know or to be tested in some way.
Absolutely. So important. And again, younger women, older women, women in the middle, men,
Yeah.
Everybody should be doing regular health screenings and heart screenings just to make sure that heart keeps beating strong. So Hannah, how do we knock out sudden cardiac death? I know that's one of the big things with you guys, with your mission.
Sudden cardiac arrest kills a lot of people. Hence the other name for it is sudden cardiac death if you don't survive it. And it actually is the #1 killer on school campuses. Like the average is about 63 students under 18 die every day in the US. But what's hard is because it's not being talked about. It killed as many people as COVID, and it's been killing that many people, and the thing is, because it's not, for instance, just take like the students, it's not like a school shooting, which all happens in one place, it's concentrated. Those 63 kids are spread out all through 50 states. So it's not like, oh, wow, this many kids died today. It's, oh, that one person a few months later when they ran the autopsy comes, and it's killing people and nobody's talking about it. The fact that cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women. Yet when you think about women, you think more like breast cancer and stuff like that. And so we kind of realized, okay, if we're going to knock it out, we got to educate people. We got to, we made a very cute, fun, we got which was by the grace of God and all these amazing things of people, we got in a boxing ring, and the person was so behind what we were doing to show, like, we really got to knock it out. Like, this is the killer, that it doesn't matter. The thing is, sudden cardiac arrest, it's not like a heart attack where you have leading up symptoms, it strikes instantly. And the thing is, it strikes anywhere, anytime, any age, any people. It doesn't, strike women more than men. It's a killer that doesn't respect anybody. It's like, hey, I'm going to come for you. And so through our education is not only, bringing it out and talking about it. And we've gone and talked to schools and presentations because we want the kids to know, like, hey, this is the #1 killer, yet you don't even know it. And then to knock out sudden cardiac arrest, not only informing them, but showing, hey, what is called the chain of survival when someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest. Hey, if they're unresponsive, they've probably gone into sudden cardiac arrest. What do we need to do? Call 911. We need to start CPR. And we most definitely, if able, shock them with an AED or an external defibrillator, because sudden cardiac arrest is an electrical malfunction in the heart. A heart attack is more like, they call it like a plumbing problem, blockage in the valve. Cardiac arrest, okay, there's an electrical problem. What's going to get that causes your heart to beat out of rhythm? And because when it's not breathing properly, blood stops flowing, and that's when you go unconscious. And then if you're not intervened, that could lead to death. And so you need that shock, that electricity, that charge, the heart charge, to shock it back into rhythm so that the person, can come back conscious and survive it. And so we've been very fortunate through this of like hearing other people's stories. And I feel very grateful. I live with what I call survivor's gratitude. So the least we can do to honor the people who didn't survive is to prepare everyone. And we prepare kids as young as 8 because we believe like anybody can be a help in this and doing it to be able to help stop it, because sometimes it happens a lot at home. And so the worst thing is knowing that you could have done something to prevent, but the thing is no one ever taught you. And so that's why we really try to teach, especially the young people, because it's when you're older, you're kind of not only in your ways or whatever, but we realize like, hey, if we're going to make the biggest impact that we can, we've got to teach the young people because they're going to be the future, right? And so if they know, hey, this is something important that's killing many people your age, like you won't believe when I'll go into presentations and I say, oh, this thing that I'm talking about, sudden cardiac arrest, I survived when I was 17. And then I have the kids raise their hand who's 17 and they realize, oh, wait, this could actually happen to somebody my age. It's not like a headline or a news thing that sometimes you think out of it, but when you meet somebody and you see it, and that's why we try to just like share our story and share the other people's stories so people realize, oh, it can happen to anyone, anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that you guys are focusing on this younger age group. And Bethany, I know when we're talking about issues with the heart, number one, it's not easy to relate that information to younger generations. And secondly, for some, it can be scary. So how do you guys make it like less scary and more engaging for this young group of individuals?
Yeah, so definitely if you check out our Instagram, HEARTCHARGED, a little plug right there, you'll definitely see our approach is that we try to be fun, we try to be creative, so every year we try to do like some type of like big campaign. So last year we did a music video, which is a pinned post on our page. And as you can see, you saw all of these young people come together. And it was a way to be able to, I think, say like, hey, look at this fun song. And it was like super catchy and everybody could learn it. And that's just a way to like click in your head, right? And going forward. And I think Hannah and I also like when we do our post or when we talk about certain things, we try to approach it in a very real and raw way. So at times you'll see us like when we're sad or when we're having a struggling time or when a thought comes to us, we share it. But I think when it also comes to like trying to make people understand it, it's putting it in like almost like a bite-sized, readable, understandable way is definitely our approach as well.
That's awesome. So I want to follow up on that. So how can people be prepared to save lives and to prevent death from heart disease?
So what we do is a big thing is like here, I wish we could do it all across the United States, but here in Miami, we put on a lot of like free CPR and AED training classes. So that's a chance because usually like 8 out of 10 sudden cardiac arrest usually happens in your home. So it's preparing you, to be able, because most of the time it's going to be a loved one. So we love doing that. We love having like hosting free classes to teach free CPR and AED training, because honestly, an AED, they're so easy. We try to tell people like, hey, they talk to you. They tell you like word for word what to do. Don't be afraid. If you have an AED, grab it. So we love doing that. Another thing that we do is the heart screenings for all students that we just passed here in Miami-Dade County, and hopefully bringing that nationally one day is a huge goal of ours. But of course, it will take a lot of work. And then the other way is just in all forms and shapes that we can, like being on your little podcast and interview helps, just I think, or anything, or, help share our message and help make people realize, hey, I should be prepared, or what can I do, or what can I look for?
Hannah, why should students learn CPR? I know we touched on it a little bit, but to you, why is it important that they know?
I think there's nothing more powerful than empowering someone, to giving them a voice, And I think it's a little bit more just because October is known as sudden cardiac arrest awareness month. It's actually when I survived sudden cardiac arrest. So it's also when I was born. It's a very special month. And I got the privilege to go to a lot of schools and to train them. And not just knowing CPR. So Bethany's actually a certified CPR instructor. And so she's really great. Because it's kind of scary, and I think people don't realize too of how much like you got to really put in your strength to do it. But like even going to the elementary and talking with the kids and telling them like, hey, like realistically, you may not be able to do CPR on everyone because if they're a bigger person, you don't have that strength. But the thing is, CPR helps, keeps the blood flowing. It helps prevent that brain damage for someone who's unconscious. But telling that kid like, hey, you could call 911. And they're so smart. They're like, oh, did you know if you shake your phone, it will emergency call? Like these kids watch so many videos. They pick on little things. So when I tell them, hey, that trick that you learned through a TikTok or whatever, that is life-saving. And this is what you could do to do it. And then telling them just where their AED is on their school campuses and knowing that they know exactly what to do and they're less frightened. And I hate when people will tell me like, because we've been pushing it for like teaching everyone in these schools, and somebody said like, oh well we're training the adults because like you can't trust the kids. And it goes, who do you think is gonna run faster to the AED? The kids. And it was even shown like in a news thing that it was a student who ran and grabbed an AED recently when someone went to cardiac arrest. And it goes like, even talking to kids, like there was a kid whose teacher had a stroke in front of them, and then like talking to him and realizing like, hey, I took the time to teach you something, to empower you. It's something that I hope you never have to use, but in reality you will. Like like I said, it could be a loved one, someone very close and important to you, and empowering these kids to think that they have the power within them to do it. It doesn't matter who they are, if they're an A student or a D student. This is something everyone can use. And there's nothing more rewarding in the sense for me to see that change in their eyes when someone gives them that confidence to know that they can be lifesavers. We call it like our HEARTCHARGED heroes. We had our nephew, after Bethany taught him the abdominal thrust, or previously known as the Heimlich maneuver, perform that on one of his friends who was choking in the lunchroom. Like that's impressive. And he's only like 8 years old, and knowing like, hey, that you can do that. You can save a life no matter your age. And there's nothing quite like that. So just being able to be a small part to remind, students that, kids get looked down upon, and even we see it as being two young girls running a nonprofit. Sometimes we don't get taken that very seriously. So in a way, it's kind of rewarding for us to kind of create this like group of people who are like, no, it doesn't matter your age. We're all empowered to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that is a huge thing. And it's something that I have always told people in my community, that if someone is dismissing you and not listening, you just raise your voice louder and you get other people involved so they can amplify your voice, and that mission then becomes a movement. And I have a really good feeling that you guys are going to make a massive movement towards educating and helping people know about CPR and heart health. So one of the things I love is you're doing all these different challenges and videos, and Heart Month in February, I'm assuming you guys are going to be doing something special for that period of time. So can you give us like a little insight, a little teaser to that?
Yes, so we're super excited because it also being Heart Month this February, and also as Hannah said, it's the heart disease is the leading killer in women. And then unfortunately, though, there's a statistic that women are less likely to receive CPR or AED help when they go into sudden cardiac arrest. So we're doing a big movement about, well, I'm going to say it because how important it is to flash someone's boobs to save their lives. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Because, it's really unfortunate to hear that women are not getting help, are not surviving a sudden cardiac arrest because they have boobs. We should not be afraid. If it's here, if we're saving somebody's life, I think it's worth it. So that is our big push. We hope that everybody will join in and be a part of it. We have like really cute little posters that we want everybody to hold up and say that they're behind the movement.
Well, you know that I am there and I will help you guys in any way possible. So definitely, we'll help you in any way that I can. So why is joining in, raising your voice, and standing up for others and for your health and for your heart so important?
The heart is such a vital organ. And we even talk just like in school things, we're always like, okay, so we have like hearing tests, eye exams. There's certain vaccines that you have to get to enter school. You even have scoliosis and all this stuff. And you realize, I mean, on the other end of having a problem with my heart, how much that affects everything, Like when something's off with your heart, it obviously is going to have repercussions in how vital it is. And then figuratively, your heart, that's like when you're like, oh, I'm leading with my heart. That's where like the kindness, the love and comes from. And sometimes I think, just speaking on in the sense of like women, of course, we're kind of a little bit more empathetic, but we're also like the first to apologize and sometimes not feel outspoken, and something that I've been trying to really push to, not only on our page, but like in the presentations for young people as well, is if you find a doctor that doesn't, listen to you, get a new doctor. And that's something that's always like, hey, if you have like it, when people ask them, do you have advice for people like this and that? And it goes back of like, there's nothing more powerful than being an advocate. And I think it's because like for us, our mom is a huge advocate for us, and being able to be an advocate, I think it's really hard. It's something that takes time to be able to push, but there's nothing more important than, believing in yourself. Of course, sometimes days can be really hard where you kind of are like, am I good enough? Am I, So having advocates in your life does help you gain that strength. And I think that's why we made this community of Heart Charge. Is there's nothing more rewarding for me when I go and I'm like, am I the only one? And being able to then like vent and ask a question like, wait, has this ever happened to someone? And someone being like, yes, oh my gosh, yes, I learned from it. And I think that's the beauty of social media, of like being able to connect with people who help you feel not alone. And I'm not gonna lie, I was stalking your page, and it was heartbreaking, but it's such a common story that it was your sister, right, who went in to see, and she told that like, hey, my sister has PCOS, and then they like dismissed her because, oh, you don't have these two signs. And I've had that like in my life where I'll go to a doctor and then I was told, right, because I was in heart failure, my body was storing a lot of water, and I just thought I was bloated or other things because I never knew what that meant. And they ran the blood test and they're like, oh yes, you're storing water. And then I went and told this other doctor, and they're like, well, your ankles are swollen. And I'm like, okay, but the numbers don't lie. Like they told me, like, and so then you have this like gaslighting method, because if you do see a lot of doctors and they're telling you this and that. And so it's so helpful to have this community so people don't feel like they're being gaslit all the time, because it's so easy to think that you are less than your doctor because they have a degree, they've been doing this. But it's like, okay, no offense, I live with my condition every day. I know it a lot better than you do. And sometimes like even the specialists, of course, working together, and they know like, oh, this little more scientific part of it, but it's like, I know what it feels like. I know the feeling and this and that of what to do. So like, yeah, not only being like an advocate for yourself, but even telling your doctor like, hey, be a little bit more, welcoming or accepting, because those are the doctors that,
Oh,
are better for you, the ones that believe in you and listen to you, and also that you can feel okay to be like, hey, I haven't been taking my medicine because here's why. And then they talk to you and they don't be like, well, that's why you like this. And you're like, okay, like I need someone to like understand why I'm going through this, because it's not an easy thing living with this condition. So, just having that general empathy to understand like, hi, it's not easy living with this condition. So please, because it is hard to stand up for yourself.
Oh, it absolutely is, but you are so right that it's absolutely necessary, because I think women's health in general, we get dismissed a lot. And that's why conditions like what you two deal with and conditions like what I deal with, PCOS, go under the radar and don't get the attention they deserve. And I love the fact that you are validating yourself, and you're empowering yourself, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. So having that community behind you is a really big deal. And Bethany, I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this as well.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's a beautiful thing to have people like you, Ashley, and Hannah. And I learned so much from Hannah, and I've learned so much from you too since we've connected. Just like how great of advocates you two are. And I think when we're advocates and we've built this community, there's definitely other people looking in that become finally advocates for themselves. And I think along this journey, I've met especially a lot of young women who they'll come to us with questions. Hey, is this normal? Is this okay? Is this how it's like? And they have nobody to turn to because the doctor doesn't answer them. And they don't know like what to ask for when they go to the doctors, or what not to ask for, or is this allowed? Should I say this? So I think it's a beautiful thing when we're advocates, we're strong, and we help set that example for other people to be advocates.
Absolutely, 100%. So here is my last question, and I think it's the most important one for the two of you. How can people connect with you on social media, website, etc., if they want to get involved, if they want to stand up with you? How do we do it?
The biggest thing is Instagram. Instagram is like home base. So please follow us on Instagram. You can DM us. We absolutely love it. So we've stayed up to like 4 a.m. DMing people because they were scared or they had questions, concerns. We are there for you, we promise. So yes, please reach out to us on Instagram. Of course, our email is linked on our website and on Instagram. So of course, we're always checking that and answering that. And if you need, you guys can have our personal cells too, because we're always down to text or FaceTime or phone call. We've done it before, so we'll do it again, of course.
You two are absolutely awesome. And I thank you so much for spending time with me and tell me more about your mission and your journeys and what's led you here. And you're girls after my own heart with the advocacy and standing up and doing this. So thank you for not only showing compassion for your community, but compassion for mine as well, and helping people feel less alone, because whether we have the same thing or different, we're all in this together, and it's all about education and better health. So thank you for that. Everyone, thank you so much for joining this interview today. And I will be sharing all of their links for their websites, their social media. Please follow them, join the challenges, help lift them up, and be part of this big movement. Have a wonderful day. And don't forget to check out all the other events, fundraisers, speakers for Heart for PCOS throughout the month of February. Have a great day, everyone.